Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Audit and Standards Committee for this evening. Members are reminded that we will be using the audio visual system this evening. A meeting will be streamlined live on YouTube. Members are asked physically to raise their hands in the usual way to indicate they wish to speak and to use their microphones when speaking for the benefit of all present. The microphone is live when the red light displays. Please switch mobile phones to silent. I will now provide a reminder of the evacuation procedure. In the event of having to evacuate the council chamber, please leave by one of the 6 emergency exits around the sides of the chamber. Please assemble at the far side of the front car park nearest to the park entrance. Officers will be on hand to assist persons who require any assistance. Public recording of the meeting. There's legislation that allows the public to film, record, or use social media at the council meeting. This must not be disruptive to the good order of the meeting, nor include any filming or recording of the public seating area. I'm Councillor Jay Mason, the Vice Chair of Audit and Standards Committee. And I confirm the following Melton Council officers are in attendance tonight. Dawn Garton, Director for Corporate Services, Clive Tobin, Monitoring Officer, Nick Satch, Revenues and Benefits Manager, hello, Chief Internal Auditor Rachel Ashley Corn, and Democratic Services Officer, most important person, Catherine Richards. External Auditor Grant Thornton, Helen Lillington. Welcome. I'd like to start off with apologies for absence. I've apologies from Councillor Evans and Councillor Higgins at the moment. Councillor Higgins can't be here tonight. He's still suffering from the aftermath of the flood, hence you've been lumbered with me. Any other apologies from anyone else? No, thank you. I'd like now to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 26th of November 2024. Can I ask whether you wish to accept the minutes or not? And can I have a second, a proposer and a seconder, please? Proposed by Councillor and seconded by Councillor Adcock. We'll take those as a true and accurate record. Thank you. Is there anyone wish to declare any declaration of interest with regard to the agenda this evening?
Sorry, Chair, we've got to vote on the minutes. We've had a second.
Do vote on the minutes. I'm sorry. Well, there you are. I fell straight away. Thank you. Would you like to come up and take my place? Yes, would you like to vote on, please? All those in favour of accepting the minutes, raise their hands. All those against? Carry unanimously. Thank you. Declaration of interest. I'll go back to declaration of interest. Is there anyone that wishes to declare an interest with regards to the agenda this evening? No, thank you. In that case, then we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is the External Audit Interim Annual Report 2023 and 24. Before I ask it to be introduced, can I have a proposer for this report, please, and a seconder? Proposed by Councillor Atherton.
So I'll second that, Chair.
Thank you. Can I ask Helen Lillington to present the report, please? Thank you.
Good evening and thank you, Chair. So you have the report in front of you. So I'll just take you through the highlights. In terms of the report, this is the findings from our value for money conclusion work. As members will be aware, we have 2 particular strands: the opinion on the financial statements and our work we do on the value for money conclusion. This is the report around the value for money conclusion. You will note it talks about it being an interim auditor's annual report, and the reason for that is it needs a slight update once the work on the financial statements is complete, which is nearing completion. I am not anticipating that to have any significant changes in terms of the report. It will simply be adding in the date we signed the opinion and the actual outcome of the financial statements. It won't lead to any changes in the recommendations, and it won't lead to any changes in terms of any additional significant weaknesses. So just to assure you that that is the reason why we've presented it, but it's quite a lengthy report, and clearly our report on the financial statements tends to be quite lengthy, so we thought it was worth bringing them separately and bringing this to you tonight. So as you're probably aware, our value for money work covers the arrangements that are in place at the council, and it focuses on three particular areas. That's the financial sustainability, the governance, and what we refer to as the 3 E's, which is economy, efficiency, and effectiveness. The outcome of the report can range in terms of the recommendations and the actions that I can take as the auditor. So ranging from me using statutory powers, so statutory recommendations, even a public interest report, or significant weaknesses, or improvement recommendations. So in terms of a sliding scale. So you'll be really pleased to hear that overall this is a really great report, and it's a really good outcome from the council. There's no significant weaknesses. I've considered whether I need to use any of my statutory powers and concluded very firmly that I don't need to. What you are left with is a number of improvement recommendations. So just talking through very briefly the executive summary, which is my page 9 in terms of report, your page 11 in your packs. So that just really gives you an overview of the findings. So you'll see they're all rated amber, and that's because each area has either got 1 or 2 improvement recommendations that we have made. So in terms of financial sustainability, the recommendation we've made there is about enhancing the arrangements further and the level of reporting in terms of savings targets and saving plans that come through to members, recognising that we live in increasingly challenging financial times, and that going forward you will be looking to potentially make more savings than you have previously, and therefore we think it's important to make an improvement so you have a bit better oversight around those. From a governance perspective, again, an improvement recommendation, which is around just making sure that where any procurement exemptions are made, that they are reported at least annually back to this committee. And again, that's just an area of good practice that we recommend. And you'll see then around the improving economy and efficiency and effectiveness, which is really things around partnership working. And we've made 2 specific improvement recommendations around that. One is around the ICT partnership, recognising that this is around the way the arrangements for internal audit work and the sort of the rotating nature of that. And I'm certainly aware that I think that's been discussed already at this committee as part of one of Rachel's reports. And then again, looking at the leisure contract management arrangements, recognising again there was an internal audit report made on that where the recommendations have been implemented around that, but we have again suggested just a watching eye on that to make sure there's appropriate capacity to manage that contract, recognising the sheer scale of it for you as a council. So a bit of a flavour, as just to stress, they are improvement recommendations. So they are areas where we think your existing arrangements could be strengthened, but no significant weaknesses. So it won't impact in terms of the audit opinion from a value for money perspective. So that's probably the overview, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Before we move on to that, just to ask the question of are there anyone who'd like to ask a question of your internal auditor, Councillor Atherton?
Just a quick one, excuse me, a quick one in relation to the audit of the ICT partnership. Page 24, your page 24, our page 26. has a statement that the partner internal audit was not undertaken for 23-24 as planned. By partner in this context, do we mean an audit by a partner council or by the ICT provider? And do we know why it wasn't undertaken?
So I'm going to look to Rachel for an element of clarification, but our understanding is that it's undertaken by internal audit, but so 1 year it would be undertaken by your internal auditors, and then another year it'd be taken by a different internal auditors from a different part of the arrangement. So it wasn't for your internal auditors to do this year, it was for a partner council to do that internal audit, and that hasn't been completed.
I'm satisfied with that.
Well, I guess the second part of the question is, do we know why not?
That's for you, Chair. So yes, we used to, I'll just give a bit of history to this. There used to be lots of audits undertaken of IT in the past, with each of the three partners doing their own audits, so to speak, from their own audit plan, and that became quite cumbersome for the IT service to sustain that. So what we agreed a couple of years ago is exactly as Helen said, that we would take it in turns to agree through our governance model what audits would be undertaken, and one partner to do that in turn. So we undertook the first audit, which obviously we're tracking and is on the Rachel's report tonight, and we did that as an example of the type of audit that could be undertaken. The following year it was meant to be undertaken by Blaby Council, but of course we know that they're leaving the partnership. So what happened there was that communications kind of, I suppose, broke down a little bit with their auditor. There was a lack of clarity around what they should be doing, and they were focusing on preparing to leave the partnership. So that's why it didn't get undertaken in that year. So Hinckley undertook to do 2 audits in this financial year. It's almost like a catch-up. They've been slow to start. One of them is a final draft stage, and I'm waiting for that to be shared with Melton. And it's unlikely that the second one will get done before the end of the year. And I'm liaising with Rachel around what we put into next year's plan, potentially undertaking 2 audits next year to catch up.
And I guess then after that will be alternate years, given that there's only 2 of us left in the partnership. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to question? Well, that sounds interesting. That sounds a reliable report. I'd just like to say I've read the report. I was interested to notice the on page 10 of the executive summary, the line in there regarding more robust management of the contract we hold with the provider at the Waterfield Leisure Centre. Could you expand on that a little bit for me, please? What in what measure I know there's a section in the report, but I'd just like to expand on that if you would, please.
So again, this recognises the work that's already been undertaken by internal audit in terms of the arrangements that have been reported in terms of the recommendations needed. We follow up on that so as not to duplicate the work that's previously been undertaken. We do recognise that those arrangements have those recommendations have already been implemented. This is almost a marker to say, for our next report, we will be making sure that those arrangements remain embedded, and that because it is such a significant contract for you, those arrangements need to be in place and need to have that necessary level of focus. So it's pleasing to see that those recommendations have been implemented, but when we looked at this, it was quite early days in terms of that implementation. So we want to make sure that when we come and look at this next year, that there's been a sustained improvement, and we can see that has continued in place and it's embedded, because the key with a lot of these arrangements is they need to be embedded and they need to be part of business as usual. So that's what we're trying to reflect in terms of that recommendation.
Thank you very much for that. I just wanted to know how it dovetailed. There's a bit of a dovetail then. I couldn't see the connection, but now I can. Thank you very much for that. Is there anyone else that wants to ask questions or would you like to debate the report in some way? Okay, well, we have a proposer and a seconder. The proposal is to note the report. Are we content as a committee to note this report from the external auditor? Show of hands, please. Okay, thank you very much. That's passed unanimously. I don't know whether you've got any more interest in the.
I'd like to stay, if that's okay, Chair, to listen to the rest of the debate.
That's what I thought you'd like to say. Thank you. Just on that one, can I just say I didn't want to influence the report, but I did read the report. It does take a lot of reading, there's no doubt about it, but I think it's an excellent report and bodes well for the future as far as I can see. And thank you very much for all the hard work that everybody's put in on it. Thank you. Okay, so we'd like to move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is the external audit review of the Housing Benefit Subsidy 2021 and 22. Dawn will provide a brief introduction to the report, but prior to that, I always take a proposer and a seconder prior to that. So could I have a proposer for the report, please? Councillor Atherton, Ian Atherton. A seconder? Councillor Richard Sharp. Thank you very much. Can I ask you to present the report, please, Dawn?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So, although the housing benefit subsidy audit is commissioned outside of the core external audit work, it has been subject to the same delay due to auditor availability. Work is underway in relation to the 22-23 subsidy claim, and that's EY Ernst Young that will be completing that, and they're aiming to have that work in relation to testing completed by the end of this month. With regard to 23-24, a new company, Assets, has been procured, and they've completed as much work as possible on that year's audit, but they're awaiting the completion of 22-23 as they can't issue their report until the prior year has been completed. So just a bit of background there as to why you're only just receiving the 21-22 results. The audit is undertaken, is required to check the accuracy of the housing benefit subsidy claim that's submitted to the Department of Work and Pensions. Sample testing is carried out and can be extended if errors are found as part of the prior years or as part of the audit of that year's claim. So obviously the aim is to avoid this extra testing where possible, because of course it increases the level of resources that's needed in-house to undertake that testing, and also it's more cost effective because the audit of this work is undertaken on a day rate basis. If you look in the report, you will see the numbers of caseload and also the number of new claims and changes of circumstances that are processed per annum. So I think when you look at those sort of numbers, it's inevitable really that there will be, there's likely to be some errors, and also that they'll be identified through the testing. But obviously the aim is always, where possible, to keep these as low as possible. The findings of the audit is positive, with a number of previous findings now being considered closed, which will reduce testing in later years. And of course, what errors were identified, you can see in the report, were of a low value. Despite this work, we'll still continue to improve our accuracy in later years. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. Do members wish to ask questions on this report? Councillor Atherton.
Yeah, just a quick question, and it relates to paragraph 5.2.1, where cells are referenced, which I assume is in a spreadsheet somewhere, but a total overpayment of about £300. Given that is a relatively low number, I assume no clawback action is taken for that overpayment. But equally, if there is a larger overpayment, do we have clawback action? How do we deal with that?
I'll probably bring my colleague in a moment, but it's a like a subsidy claim form, which is a form of spreadsheet, and it's cells on that form that it refers to, and there are arrangements for clawback, but I'm not. I'll ask my colleague to fill in on the levels.
Yes, so any clawback would be done in the sort of following year subsidy claim. Obviously, we receive subsidy payments throughout the year, so it would be adjusted in the following year's subsidy claim if it was a more significant overpayment.
So do we have a minimum value then at which we start to take clawback action, or is it even if there's a penny, we claw it back the following year?
Yeah, there's no sort of minimum level. Even if it is a penny, it would be clawed back. So yeah, this overpayment will be clawed back in our following year's subsidy claim.
Done.
Sorry, could I just clarify? So Nick was talking about the clawback from DWP reimbursing us. Were you also talking about clawback of an overpayment from the claimant themselves? Okay.
Sorry, I was referring to any clawback from the DWP. Any overpayment that we make to claimants would be clawed back sort of by various means. It could be via ongoing entitlement, so we would deduct it at a weekly rate. If they were to come off housing benefit, it would then be raised as a sundry debtor, and we would look to claw it back from the claimant in that respect.
Thank you for that. Anyone else would like to? Councillor Brown?
It's just on that one, where it refers to errors in earnings figures. Were they errors made by us on what we returned, or errors because we've been given the wrong information from the client?
It was errors made sort of by assessment officers. So when they were assessing the claim, it was errors in inputting the earnings onto the system.
Okay. Is there anyone else would like to enter into a debate, or would any more questions be asked? Thank you. In that case then, again, this report is for noting, and I'd just like to ask the committee whether they would like to, as a recommendation is, notes the finding of this report and the action being taken in response to the audit findings. Can I have a show of hands for noting the report, please? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful report, and I don't think we need to keep you, but you can stop if you like. Happy to stay. Thank you. It's riveting, isn't it? I'd like to move on to item 6. This is the internal audit progress report, and as per normal, there is an exempt appendix within this. I'm assuming that everyone has had a chance to look at the appendix or the appendices, and should members wish to comment on it, we need to withdraw ourselves from the public gaze and cease the YouTube link. So if anyone would like to debate it, that's fine, we can do that. But if not, I'll press on with the report. So would anyone like to debate Appendix B or ask a question of Appendix B of the auditor? Councillor.
So I have some questions on one of the items in Appendix B, but I don't think in terms of this meeting that the auditor would be able to answer it. And it's to do with something that we've recently implemented. It may be more applicable to take that out of committee, but quite happy to discuss it tonight, right at the end if needs be, and work out who best to put my question to.
I'm quite happy to take advice on that from
Chair. It's only if Councillor Atherton wishes to raise that as part of the formal consideration of the report. If it's a query outside of that to officers, then of course that can be dealt with in any way we see fit. So if you are confident that you can consider the report without having to refer to that individual item, then there wouldn't be any need to go into private.
I can email my query outside of committee anyway.
Would you copy members of the committee on that? Thank you very much. Is everyone content with that position? Thank you. In that case, then we'll move on to the report, and ask Rachel. Before that, if I can just invite a proposer and seconder for the report, that would be Councillor Atherton to propose it, Councillor Brown to second it. Can I ask Rachel to present the report, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the latest update on the delivery of this year's internal audit plan. So it is in the usual format that the committee will be familiar with, and I will just talk through the key sections as usual. So there is a copy of the full internal audit plan on page 51 of tonight's papers, which sets out each of the assignments, the status at the time of producing this report, and the outcome of those which have been finalised. So since the last committee meeting, we have finalised one further audit report, which is summarised in the papers from page 49, which was in relation to landlord health and safety. So this is an audit that we conduct on an annual basis and relates to our housing stock. I think it's one of our key risks as an authority is making sure we have safe properties for our tenants, that we're complying with all the relevant compliance requirements and procedures. So I'm really pleased to be able to give substantial assurance on both the design and the control environment and the compliance for this audit, and a low organisational impact. So as summarised on page 49, within the sample tests that we performed, we were able to verify compliance with all of those compliance elements that we were expecting to see from the key control policies and the procedures we expect to see in place. And there were no gaps that we needed to highlight for the committee's attention, hence the positive assurance outcome this evening. So I'm pleased to be able to bring this one to the committee. We did also include within the testing on installation of fire and carbon monoxide detectors, which is one of the newest requirements of that area. So within the report is also the update on implementation of actions arising from our audit reports. So this is summarised for you on table Appendix 2, page 55 of the papers, which shows we have 17 actions implemented since the last audit committee meeting, and 15 which are currently overdue. So 3 of those fall into that category of being high priority and over 3 months overdue, and as mentioned are covered in Appendix B. So there is also one additional recommendation for the committee to note this evening in relation to an amendment to the audit plan, which is set out in section 2.6 of the report on page 50 of the papers. And this is in relation to a potential amendment to the audit plan that's proposed, which is to remove the audit of the social housing regulation compliance, given that the council has already been subject to the inspection in 2024. So an audit assurance at this point doesn't seem to add as much value as we thought it would at the time of producing the audit plan. And what we've suggested is replacing this with the usual annual assurance on compliance with the Procurement Act and the new requirements that are coming in with the new legislation as well. So this amendment has already been applied within the audit plan, which is in pages 51 of the papers under the delegation that was agreed at the time of approving the audit plan. So those are the key sections of the report as usual, but I'll be happy to expand on any of the areas or take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Are there any questions? Any debate around the report? Would you raise your hands if there are, please?
Just a quick one,
Councillor
Chair,
Carter?
thanks. On the carbon monoxide, Rachel, do we know all the council properties are allocated for machines in the properties for carbon monoxide on the report? Because so all the do we know all the properties have got monitors in the properties?
So through you, Chair. Yes, so as I mentioned, we have included coverage on carbon monoxide detectors and smoke detectors within the testing this year, which we included last year as well for the first time. So the council reports on its coverage of carbon monoxide detectors, and I think at the time of the audit I would need to confirm, but it was, I believe, over 90%, and all of the non-compliant properties were subject to obtaining access to be able to install the devices. So what we do is select a sample of those that they've reported have the devices and then verify that they're in place through the evidence that we could see. So of those we selected that have been reported as compliant, 100% of those had evidence that the devices were in place and that they were valid as well.
Thank you for a very precise answer for that. Thank you. You're content with that, Councillor Carter?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to question the report or seek a debate? Let us know then. Thank you very much. Again, this report is to be noted. We have a proposer and a seconder. Can I ask by show of hands whether you seek to note this report as presented by the internal audit, the audit plan for 2024-2025, please? Thank you. That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. I like to be crisp. In that case, then, move on to item 7. I've had no notification of any urgent business, and I've no urgent business to discuss. So, in that case, then, I shall declare the meeting closed at 19:01. Thank you very much for your attendance.